Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining What Product Teams Need to Know About CLS and Their Ad Inventory webinar. I'm Asaf Shamli. Now I know you all are worried from the Google changes for core web vitals coming in July and August this year. No, I am sure I am worried about that. Today we're going to be talking a bit about the CLS, core web vital metrics specifically. We're going to be looking at how ad inventory affects this. And we're going to be talking more about, data around that and how you guys can actually improve that yourself. You are more than welcome to ask any questions in the panel that you have. I'll be taking those questions at the end of the webinar if we have some time. And in the following few weeks, we will be sending some more information, more data around core virus and CLS from Brownsville. So stay tuned for that as well. So today we will be talking, first of all, about who we are at Brownsville, very quick, brief introduction about what we do. We're going to be giving you a quick introduction on what CLS is, reminding everyone where you should be with your CLS scores and what this metric specifically is aimed towards. We're going to be looking at ad inventory, specifically around how it affects CLS for digital web publishers out there. We're going to be showing some data around what really affects the CLS scores with web inventory, for ad inventory. And we're going to be showing you some quick hacks and best practices around how you can actually solve that yourself. Now, who we are, our mission at Browse is to help publishers make the most out of their ad inventory. We do it by unleashing AI behind the process of creating, optimizing, and personalizing the entire inventory. Now let's talk about CLS very briefly. CLS, or Cumulative Layout Shift, is a metric that was created by Google. The entire goal of this metric is to help developers and site owners to understand how changes in their layout affect user experience, or we should be saying unexpected changes in their layout. This metric is aimed to improve UX by minimizing the unexpected changes on your pages, and you are all expected to be below the 0.1 score on CLS. We want to be honest here for a second. We want to say something very important that for web publishers and digital publishers, as most of you here are today, the thing that affects most your CLS score is probably your ad inventory, as this is the only thing on your pages that you are not controlling yourself. You know exactly where your content is and where it comes from. You own your CMS and your CDN. You know your images and videos on your pages. You know exactly how to control those very, very, very good and quickly. But when you talk about ads, different users get different ads. Different, sellers on your team are selling different sizes, right? Different campaigns are serving differently. So this is the one thing for a web publisher that is unexpected on their pages and really affects the CLS scores. Now, if we look at this really simple example by Google, we can see that once you try to order something, for example, on a website, and eventually you want to go back, and this change on your page affects the fact that you, by mistake, presses the wrong button, this is a very simple case where you can actually solve very quickly. If that's happening, you can just remove that widget on the top and make sure it loads on the bottom, or just not load it at all. But when we talk about web publishers, as we are right now, we cannot really control those experiences when we talk about ads. Again, these are changes on your pages constantly being served differently to different users. And we do want to make sure that we know exactly what's being served all the time. Now, the key thing here is that you do not need to take my word for that or really trust me on that. What we have done here is we took 500 worldwide publishers, specifically top digital newspapers around the globe, and we took specifically content articles and URLs from those publishers. We measured them in 4 different segments. The first one would be no ads at all. The second one, only above the fold ads. The third is only below the fold ads, and eventually loading all the ads exactly as the publisher intended it to be. Now, as you can see here, when we're removing all the ads from the page, the CLS scores are actually very low. And that makes sense. Again, you have your content, you have your images. Some things might be loaded a bit later, which causing some shift for some users on some publishers. But eventually, the scores are around 0.1 and 0.15, which is a very good score to be at. When we're looking at the above the fold ads for your users, we're looking at a very high score. Now, the reason this is happening is that your users are coming into your pages, the content is already loaded, but then you have the above the fold ads loaded after the content because no matter what you do, the ad server responds slower and later than your CMS, you can see that your CLS scores are actually going really high to zero point 0.3 and 0.35 in average. Now, these ads, which are above the fold for mobile, usually one top ad, and on desktop, a top ad, maybe a rel or an ad above your menu. Those kind of ads are really affecting your users because when they just want to read the content, just want to start consuming the reason that they came to your website, these ads are shifting their pages down. And that makes sense, right? This is the first thing that they get on their pages. Now, third, we'll look only at the below the fold ads for your users. In that case, we do see that the CLS scores increase from the no ads, but it is lower than when we look at the only above the fold ads. Now, that makes sense, right? It's not there when the user gets to the page, but as he scrolls down, he might have some lazy loading, he might be scrolling down very fast, and this really affects the ads that are within the content or below the content, shifting the page down as the user view those content or those places on your pages. Now last, we'll look at when we load all the ads to those pages. In that case, we see that the CLS scores are roughly between the 0.3 for mobile and the 0.4 for desktop. And again, this makes sense. Both the below the fold ads moving some content in between and the above the fold ads moves the entire page for the user, creating a very high CLS scores, which obviously you do not want to have on your site. Now, once we have done this research, we actually took apart all of those groups in between, and we try to break down the reasons of why we're seeing this happening. And I'm sure that some of those reasons are familiar to you guys, but it is a very complex thing to understand and maybe complex thing to solve because every solution has some sort of a drawback that we're going to be looking at in just a moment. So let's talk about why this is happening. Let's talk about why those CLS changes happen with ad inventory on your pages. The first and foremost, and I think everyone here have had this in mind, is the fact that there's no idea of what's actually coming back from your ad server. You do not know whether this is a big ad or a small ad. It's going to be 300 by 250 or an ad that's going to be expanding. It might be a fluid ad, might be a native ad coming from your ad server. There is no way of predicting it. And all of you are creating multiple sizes ad slots on your pages because, again, it makes sense, right? This is what we're selling and this is lucrative to you as a publisher. You're making more money by doing that. The second reason is using what we call the stupid or pixel-based lazy load. In that case, it's great because you're doing some lazy loading to your ads on your pages to achieve probably higher viewability and better performing ad inventory. But when you're just doing it by pixels, so paragraph-based, you're exposed or subjected to your user's behavior. You have no idea where the user will be in just 1 or 2 moments. And if this user is a user like me, where you scroll all the way down to the bottom and then scroll all the way back to the top to see how long the article is, you're probably going to be loading a lot of ads at once, creating a shift, a massive shift on the page layout, right? The last reason is that ads takes time to load. You might be great creating, amazing lazy loading, or you might be trying to really improve the placeholder for your above the fold ads, but ads take time to load. And when that happens, you have no idea where the user will be and how that affects once the ad is being opened, because the ad takes more time to load than your content on your pages and anything else, basically. And this really is one of the biggest problems that we have identified looking at those publishers and researching the reasons of why CLS is happening. And of course, we have many more reasons for those changes on the page that might even not be around ad inventory. But we do have identified that inventory, as you've seen from the data above, is creating most of the changes to your CLS scores. Before we dive deep into how we can solve that, let's talk for a second about the best practices for measuring CLS. The first tool that you probably have all been using is the PageSpeed Insights by Google and the Chrome user experience data on Data Studio by Google. Both of them are great tools to measure your CLS on specific pages and see where you're at on the scale of good to bad CLS and any other core web vital metrics, to be honest. But in that case, you have 2 very big problems. The first one is that these tools are not offering real-time data. The PageSpeed Insights, for example, is offering a specific data around your page right now. It doesn't really look at your users and different users and how they behave. And when we're looking at specific ad inventory in that equation, ad inventory behaves really differently between different users because the impressions are very different. You're targeting different campaigns for users in the UK and the US Programmatic is delivering different ads to users between different internet connection or different ages even, right? So if you're using this offline tools, you're not really getting the entire picture of how your inventory and your impressions are affecting your CLS scores in real time. Second of all, the Crooks data, the Chrome user experience data, is great, but it's not showing you data from the past day or two. It just shows you aggregated data from before. It might be a month old or 2 weeks old. That means that if you're creating a change or trying to resolve something on your pages for your CLS scores to lower down, and you're doing it right now, you won't be able to see those coming into effect only a few weeks later. And the way to resolve those issues really is to take a look at some real-time core web vital measurement. Just apply some of the Google libraries or your own libraries to be able to really measure and collect data around core web vitals and around exactly how those affect your users to do two things. First of all, to understand exactly how real users in real life cases affect CLS. And second of all, see how your changes and your updates to your site actually affect your CLS scores quickly, so you can adapt quickly and react quickly to any change that you may have on your pages. Now, let's talk about a bit about quick and best practices and hacks to be able to lower down your CLS scores. Now, none of these ones are perfect. Let me tell you that from the get-go. Trying to resolve your CLS is a task. It's a habit task that you need to take and you need to break apart and understand exactly how you can get there. But it is possible to get there using the right tools and using the right mindset when you're doing that. So first of all, the maybe most simple solution would be to hard code your single ad sizes. Make sure that you have no multiple sizes on your ads, specifically on your above the fold ads. That means that you can create a placeholder for the ad to come to the page, and then there's no changes in the shifts of the page. The problem is you probably don't want to do that. Your sales team and your ad ops team will not require you to will not allow you to do such a thing because they're selling a lot of sizes, and your programmatic campaigns are performing better and making more money to you when you can have more sizes competing over your inventory. So you might be doing that and improving your CLS scores, but eventually reducing down your revenue by a lot. Second thing here is your lazy loading. If it's causing you problems, if it's not behaving as expected and creating a lot of CLS changes, just remove your lazy loading. Of course, in that case, we all know that what's going to happen is that you're going to have low viewability, it's going to lower down your CPMs, and eventually you're going to have some bad latency to your website. This is actually a very bad thing to do. And again, you're losing money by adding lazy loading, but you might be able to improve your CLS scores. Now, the third one here, latency, is something that I've asked myself if that should even be here on the slideshow, because we've all been trying to improve our latency on our website. We've been all trying to improve the way that our pages are being loaded to be able to create, honestly, better user experience. We all know that for every second that we are able to reduce down from the page load, we guarantee more users engaging on our web pages, right? The problem is it's really easier said than done, right? You're gonna have to pull up a bunch of your teams. You're gonna have to reviewing everything that's running on your pages, which is a hard thing to be able to do as a publisher, right? Specifically, if you're gonna have to do that by the next couple of months till we release that change by Google. Number 4 is add more sticky units. You probably have those already on your mobile side, right? So try to add those to your desktop as well. This will create a bit more inventory. It will never shift your content or never create any shifts on your pages, because obviously these ad units are simple sticky units that are not changing anything on your site. But then again, the drawback here is this might be upsetting your users and actually cause the exact opposite of what CLS is trying to achieve, right? If we're trying to create a better user experience by just adding more stickiness to our pages, we might not be able to achieve this goal by doing this. Now, last is using some real-time data and analytics to understand your users exactly and to understand exactly where an ad should be on the page, where it should be on the page, and exactly when this ad should be loaded to your pages. Now, obviously, this will require a lot of work to do. It requires some AI behind your ad inventory, and it will require you to be able to pull a lot of algorithms in between, which again will be very hard thing to do in the next upcoming couple of months. So this is wrapped things up pretty much. Today we have reviewed a bit about what CLS is, where you want to be below the 0.1 score. We have reviewed some reasons and some data around what actually causes ad inventory specifically to affect your CLS heavily. We have reviewed the way of measuring CLS and exactly how you yourself might be able to uh, elevate or reduce down this CLS score at least by a bit. So thank you so much for that. And I'm taking questions right now if we have any. Yep. Okay, so we have time for just a couple of questions right now. So first of all, a question, if I load the below the fold ads at the same time of the above the fold ads, won't that resolve my CLS scores? So as I mentioned, removing your above the fold, I'm sorry, loading the below the fold ads at the same time as the above the fold ads is a great thing to do. However, this causes low viewability because you're probably removing your lazy loading, probably removing your viewability and lowering down your CPMs. So you might not be wanting to do that. So yeah. Second question that I'm getting right here is, does pre-bid or any other bidder affect on CLS scores? That's an interesting question, actually. So pre-bid by itself is not affecting CLS scores per se, but obviously if you have pre-bid on your pages, you're going to be creating some sort of a more time till the ad actually gets to the page, right? Because you're adding one more layer before the ad request to your ad server. By doing that, you're creating more latency and more time till the ad takes to load. So it affects CLS not directly, but indirectly by just adding more latency and adding more time till the ad is actually being loaded. That might cause the user to not be on the place you want them to be and cause a shift while the actual ad was loaded. And a second thing around pre-bid is that we do know that a lot of bidders are not respecting fully the size that was requested. So you might be getting some other sizes from pre-bid than what you've requested. Again, creating this size issues with your ad inventory and actually shifting down the page because you were expecting a 300 by 250, but you were actually getting a bigger size, which we were not expecting. Again, shifting the page, even if you had a placeholder in place, that would make that simple. Now, there's another question, what Brownsville is exactly doing. So Brownsville very quickly is putting AI behind your ad inventory, choosing exactly to which user allocate which ad inventory in real time, understanding exactly your user behavior and exactly where, when, and if an ad should be loaded in the goal to increase viewability and increase increase your CPMs and performance, reduce down your latency. Now, it is a very big webinar. A lot of participants are in here right now, and we will not be selling Browsy here, but we will love to do a private session to any one who would like to dive deep into what Browsy is doing and how we can help your team to resolve CLS issues while improving your viewability and improving your CPMs on your pages. Do we have time for any more questions? No? No time for any more questions. Okay. So again, I want to thank you all. We will be sending you a lot of information on the following weeks. Thank you so much for joining us today and have a great day. Bye-bye.